missing someone.
Welcome to the EchoCast. I am Bon Diesel. This is a podcast about the Division game and the upcoming sequel in March. Welcome back if you've been here before. If you're new, thanks for checking it out. I'm gonna be totally honest, this may not be the longest podcast I've ever done. There is not much to talk about, but I'm gonna do my best. I still think it'll be a good episode, so let's go from there. When it comes to updates with the stream and such, similar as last week, I'm going to try to update the stream and do Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. Mostly weekends on, mostly mornings on the weekend, afternoons during the weekdays. This coming week, Thursday may be a little bit late or maybe not at all, simply because I have a training that's about 2 hours away that I'll be returning from, and I may not be home until late, so we'll see. I did put out a new Intel Insights video on the Shield audio, the Shield 5 through 8. They're actually pretty cool. Some interesting information in there, I think. And yeah, and that's kind of all I have. State of the game recap. Once again, none. I won't expect one next week either. I've talked about it a little bit, and it just kind of seems like it's going to be one of those things that we're just going to have to wait till December. I hope December for some information. I still think, I'll say it again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I think at least doing a community stream, even if it was 20 minutes, would be better than this. I don't think this is how you want your community to kind of feel during this extreme lull in information or any news or anything. Like I've said before, on the other side is I'm assuming they're so busy getting stuff ready for next month and for March that this makes sense to not do anything at all this month. I'm sure those productions, those guys, they may only spend 30 minutes on the screen, but I'm sure it's 2 hours of their day between the preparation and completing it and everything else it takes to do one of those. So I like to understand what's going on. I can only imagine on their side how nuts things probably are right now as they prepare for the next few months. But we from a community side, we're hankering for something. But I'm sure the wait will be worth it, and we'll go from there. So for Division news, the only thing I have is that there will be a DevBlog this coming Thursday on the November 29th. They haven't really given us any indication on what it's going to cover. If I had to guess, maybe another faction, maybe some of the new skills and the skill mods, and how even the cosmetic mods that we're going to have with the skills with this go around. That information we found out when during the pre-order announcements, there was a mod for a skill that everyone lost their crap over, thinking it was going to offer some kind of power advantage, but they did clarify that it was purely a cosmetic, which I think is interesting. I'm cautiously optimistic that could be kind of cool. I like the idea of, maybe you can pick different types of explosions of your seeker mine or whatever. My concern with these skill cosmetics is the same way I wasn't a big fan of how goofy some of the cosmetics got in Division 1. I'm not really sure I want to see like really goofy stuff with these cosmetics on the skills. Hopefully it's not too silly. It's a video game, and I know some people really like some of the goofy stuff, but yeah, there were definitely some of the masks and even some of the cosmetics that, if they would have released that stupid bunny suit that got leaked, I may have quit playing the game. That probably isn't true, but it definitely would have been a thought, because that would have been really dumb. But I know some people disagree, so I just hope that they keep the skill mods in check with Division 2. But yeah, I don't know what the blog is going to be about. Like I said, I imagine it's going to be hopefully something we haven't heard. Unfortunately, some of the gun information was new, but really that True Sons blog was, it gave us information we didn't have, but I still kind of feel like we've just been getting basically gifs of the trailer from E3 over and over again, and then very itty bitty tiny updates of stuff we've already known for the last 6 months or whatever. So I'm more than confident that there's a plan here. I understand that there's probably a big PR plan and marketing and all that good stuff that is gonna pay off. It's just the current moment makes it tough. We all want just more of that information, and here in 2 or 3 months we'll forget that this drought even happened, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's kind of all I have for this week. The discussion I want to do is going to be just talking about kind of what is coming and what I'm expecting over the next 3-4 months. And so I'll just start. So I'm going to preface this with, this is mostly me guessing stuff that I'm not really sure about. But so we'll start with December. So what we know, or what I think may happen. So we've been told ish that we would get some kind of dev blog or some kind of information about the DZ in December by Julian at the Ubi Day. I think people need to maybe keep in mind that may not be exactly what happens. I know everyone's kind of riding on that idea that that's what we're gonna get, which I hope we do. But I don't think people should expect like a wholesale, here's every detail about the DZ and PvP and how it's going to work. I do not believe that's going to be the case. Maybe some basic stuff. Good lord, for me, I just want to know where it's going to be for my community map that I started and have been working on. I just want to know where the darn thing is so I can start trying to guess other stuff. But the fact that we don't even know where the DZ is yet, I actually think can be a strength. It kind of tells you how much information we still have to find out. And I harken back a little bit to what I said, I believe last week, was how we really did get a lot of information during E3. So, in Ubi I'll trust for now. So I think we'll get DZ or some other kind of game information. I suspect we may begin maybe some quiet press events and things like that. I'm extremely tiny when it comes to the big picture, when it comes to all this stuff. So while I would absolutely love to be invited to some kind of event or something, I'm not expecting it, and I get it. It's not. I was surprised to even be considered a star player, let alone be able to get anything extra like that. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start getting some of those things, and I imagine those people that, the real big creators and stuff will get a chance to start creating content and stuff for the future. So we shall see. I assume we'll get some state of the games. I hope. Maybe, I don't know. I imagine that once there's stuff to talk about, they'll be on there. I think the state of the games are going to be really important because I've been guessing for a while some pretty wholesale changes in Division 2 compared to the first game. And it's going to be things that some people are going to love and some people are going to hate. I'm pretty confident that for the most part, they're probably going to make changes that the majority of people like. But what I found and what I think people should remember is that the majority of people are not on Twitter and Twitch and so on. If anything, I would guess that you're looking at more of a vocal minority in those communities, including myself. And I think those state of the games are going to be an important thing for the game and the community to have, to clarify questions, to especially clarify things with the pre-orders and microtransactions, if that stuff comes up and whatever. I think we may there may be some kind of alpha playtest. There is a precedent for that in Division 1. I believe there was a alpha test for like regular players, just people in the community who you have probably heard of or know who were in the alpha test. And I believe there was even some special cosmetics that they got at the beginning of the game. I don't know how many people are really involved in it, but I know that there were a decent number. I suspect that will happen again. I'd be surprised if it didn't. And yeah, I'm willing, if I have to. But I think that'll probably happen. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And then in January, we know for a fact that that's when the betas will begin. I personally still think that they should happen in December, but I don't think that's going to be the case. We don't have dates on that. I'm just gonna guess the middle of January is when the private beta will begin, and those are the pre-order betas. The pre-order beta that you get with pre-ordering, I believe, any of the editions of the game. I suspect that's when we'll start to get kind of a torrent of trailers and game info videos. If you remember back before the Division came out, there were all kinds of videos explaining some of the mechanics of the game and the factions and things like that. I also, and this is just kind of a hope, that maybe we'll start getting some podcasts with developers, community members, and so on through the official channel. From, I don't know if Hamish would do it anymore because of his N-Gon responsibilities, but if you go back to the official SoundCloud or any of the podcast channels for the game, they were doing, podcasts, 10 months ago, to talk about the Division 1 and what kind of game it is, and interviews with people who are making it and updates about the game. And, the kind of relative radio silence, I guess it isn't that surprising considering the rest of what's going on. But man, I would sure love if I would sure love if we were getting those. But again, with no state of the games and things like that, I'm just assuming that they're literally so busy that there's just not much to talk about, or that not much to release, at least at this point. Then comes February of next year. I'm gonna guess that. I think that's pretty easy to assume. That's when the second beta, the closed beta, will happen. That's the one that everyone was able to sign up for around E3, and even today, if you search for the Division 2 closed beta, there should be a pretty simple login and sign up thing for Division 2. You don't have to pre-order, nothing. You just sign up. That was the thing that they talked about, where they had like 10 times as many signups for that as they did for any other beta, in which their previous record was the Division 1. I've had concerns at one point that, man, I wonder if the popularity of this game is going to not be as big as the first one. But I actually think that with as much work as they did on the first one and quote unquote recovering the game, I actually think that this game may end up being bigger. I just hope that this time it's ready for the prime time, which, you know, I'm confident it will be, but I'm kind of the eternal optimist, as many of you know. I suspect this is in February is when we'll start getting some of the final trailers, start getting some of the final information we're going to get before the game comes out. I don't know how many people remember how I believe the LMB didn't even get announced to the playing base until right before the game came out. Most people didn't even, we were only aware of the 3 other factions. And so maybe we'll get some of kind of that last minute information. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some kind of viral marketing. With the first game, if you remember, they released a website where you could type in your home address and it would show you something along the lines of like your chances of survival in the event of this thing happening, depending on how close you were to major cities and airports and things like that. It was really cool, and the website's probably still up. I don't remember what it was called though. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that kind of stuff. I've been kind of looking back at some of the marketing for the last few Ubisoft games that have come out, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get some stuff kind of like Far Cry. They had that the father event where a bunch of people were invited to like a field where the voice actor and actual actor who did the father in Far Cry 5 did a little event, and so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's something like that. That'd be pretty cool. You know, there's a lot of potential in the United States to do events in DC and in places like that. Maybe even New York, as kind of harkening back to the first game, where they could, you know, invite people there and do those sorts of things, and then put videos out about it, which I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get that. And then will come March. We know that the early access release for the game will be on the 12th. We know that the actual release of the game for everyone will be on the 15th. That's obviously been a talked about thing. I think 3 days of early access, you know, maybe it's unnecessary, but I really don't think it's going to be the end of the world. And I think especially after the first, you know, if they raise gear scores the way they did in the first game and stuff like that, the first time they raise gear score, which would probably be within the first month or two, it's not going to matter anymore, because then everyone's going to have the game and access and all that. A thing that we've heard nothing about, but I'm willing to put a guess out, is that week before the game comes out, or maybe even the first week of March, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get an open beta for everyone to play. In the Division 1, I actually had followed the game pretty closely, but didn't actually get really into it until I played the open beta in January of 16. And yeah, so I think that's obviously a really good idea for them to make sure they do that sort of thing. And I think that, you know, that's basically a demo. I mean, and just to be straight up, like this, the first beta in January, it's going to give them a chance to maybe work out some kinks with servers and things like that. Maybe some real high level balancing things and stuff like that. But I suspect it's going to be such a limited demo or beta. And you know, that it's going to be the game that we're going to get. You know, that's kind of the pattern we've seen with betas and stuff like that. I certainly don't think, and I certainly hope it won't be a similar situation as things like Fallout 76 and so on. I literally just pray that there won't be a single word comparing those two things, because, you know, the 76 has been such a hot mess, and I've really got a lot invested in a lot of hopes for Division 2. But yeah, I'm pretty willing to put a little money on the idea that there will be an open beta before the game comes out. So we'll have to see though. And that's kind of, you know, kind of the roadmap as I see it over the next few months. I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot more than that. I'm sure there's things I can't even predict or imagine that they're going to do. You know, we're probably going to get some gameplay live streams with the devs and the community developers and so on. You know, I'm sure there's going to be community members, people like Marco and Wids and other people who will come out of their slumber, and we'll get some information they're allowed to make videos about and stuff. I mean, I think once we get past, I hope December starts to pick up a little bit, but especially starting in January, I'm kind of hoping that we, really things get rolling. We're gonna have things like Anthem coming out in February. Sorry, I yawned. But with Anthem coming out, I wouldn't be surprised if the Division kind of tries to drown them out a bit. I know some people are really excited about that game. I so don't care about that game that I have a feeling. I have a feeling that that game isn't gonna be the big scary gorilla in the room that everyone thinks it is. So as long as Cyberpunk or something doesn't magically announce that they're being released in March, I think Division's actually gonna have a pretty good leg to stand on, assuming they do all the right things. And we still kind of need to wait and find out what those things are going to be. So there, I still think there's some pretty major things we need to find out before Division 2 releases, and find out over these next few months. I still, I haven't gone the hyper sensational, borderline overreacting fashion the way a lot of people did with the pre-orders. But I think just for the sake of the game and pre-orders, and I still think we need it's when we find out exact information about the stash and these additional activities and stuff, with the season pass and with the elite agent pack or whatever it is, I highly suspect it's gonna feel really dumb that people were worried about it in the first place. But because there are some large voices that are gonna hype, hype that up and sensationalize it and freak out about it. I think it's just smart to just get that information out, and that doesn't give away any of the story. It shouldn't take away from any of the hype or anything if they're making the right decisions. It in my opinion, can only help with pre-orders and sales and the excitement with the game and all that, because it's kind of that final, big question mark that a lot of people have, I think, is what those things mean. I still personally have a pretty good feeling that it's going to be so negligible that people may actually complain about what it isn't. We had additional activities with Division 1 Season Pass, and it ended up being a silly crate that drops twice a month and wasn't really that useful until the last couple months when they put Div Tech in it. And then the stash, I have a feeling there's much more of a likelihood that it's going to be so small that people with the elite agent pack are going to be annoyed that they feel like they didn't get enough money despite all of the other 20 extra things they get with the ultimate and stuff like that. But so people are going to complain either way, but I still think that information getting out ASAP can only help the game. But that's just this dude's opinion. I think some light talk about things kind of in that same idea, talking about like the 7 days early access to the DLCs. They've already said that the DLCs do not include the raid, so that means that there won't be early access to the raid, which I think was super duper important for them to clarify. I think that they need to clarify that 7 days early access. I'm assuming with the DLCs will come new gear, whether it's gear sets or branded gear or weapons or whatever. I think that's when they're also going to deploy new specializations or specialists. I think that it's okay to maybe give people with the season pass the ability to maybe check those things out. I don't know. I've been seeing a lot where people are worried that people with season pass are going to be able to farm that stuff and use it during that week especially, and just be able to obliterate other people with it, which, to be fair, if it's balanced, that shouldn't be an issue. But we all know that there's been maybe less than a stellar record with that in the past. But I just think maybe announcing, giving us a clear clue on how that stuff is going to work, and how much of an advantage that's really going to give people, and to give us some idea that they have considered those concerns, right? I think And on a lighter note, I feel like, giving us maybe not, I don't want any information about what the DLCs are going to include, the chapters. I don't want specific information, but, maybe give us some idea of, the chapter 1 pass is going to have 2 new missions, a new mode, a new PvP mode, some new gear, some new weapons, and this and that. The chapter 2 is going to have some map expansion. It's going to have this, it's going to have that. The raid's going to be released. There's a fine balance. I get it, but it would be nice to kind of find out, just because I think people are worried that because these DLCs are free, that they're going to be feature poor. I don't think so. I think they're going to ride that into the dirt and make sure everyone knows how free this stuff was and how much they're going to get out of it. I think clarifying what's going to happen after season 1 is a smart thing too, after year 1, because we're getting this first year free. I highly suspect that we'll get probably a year 2 and 3 of DLC that will have its own season pass, where you'll have to pay $20, maybe $25, hopefully not too much more, for 3 more content updates. And if they're feature rich, if there's a lot to them, then it'll be cool. It'll be exciting to know that after that first year, it won't be kind of the way Division 1 was, where we got some content after year 1, and it was fine. It was solid content in a lot of ways, but it still wasn't what everyone was expecting. More missions, more activities, and we got more activities, but really more than anything, the lore hounds like me really wanted more story. And while we've gotten tidbits here and there, we never really got that really satisfying movement forward of the story. Now, obviously, we're going to get that with Division 2, but it'd be really nice if within the Division 2, it's not just the story we get when the game starts, but it's the story that we get as the game goes on, and very likely leads to a Division 3. I mean, I'm not ignorant. I know what's probably coming in 3 or 4 years after this game comes out. More than likely with the next generation of consoles and whatever the next gen of PC hardware is going to be. So I just think some clarification on what's coming in that way. I don't want details. I don't want anything spoiled. Don't ruin anything for us. But I still think the more people know in a very broad sense, the better it's going to be for the game in the long run. It's probably going to get more pre-orders. It's probably going to get more excitement and more hype for the game if you address people's concerns with the game in some reasonable fashion. I think during that stream they did, the State of the Game, where they explained some of the pre-order stuff, people are worried that they're going to turn the stash into a microtransaction, and they basically said that they weren't. So if they do, that gives you a great thing to tee off on, and I hope people do if they go against that. It's just we need that information. And while during the summer they were I think it was a reasonable thing for them to say, well, everything's not locked down at this point yet, everything's not finalized, we don't want to comment and be wrong and change our minds or whatever. I think at this point in the game, that's not a thing anymore. It really shouldn't be. I'm sure there's still plenty of things for them to figure out and do. I have a hard time believing that the things that we're concerned about, that we've expressed concerns about, aren't pretty much finalized, and could be released at least with some detail. But I also don't know anything, and I'm just guessing, and I'm just hoping for the best. I do, have a lot of excitement for this game. I've been talking about it a lot. Any of you who pay attention to me in any capacity, I'm trying to manage that a bit, because I definitely don't want to burn out before March. And once there's more information to talk about, the burnout's much less of a concern. It's fairly easy to get excited and stay excited about something once there's stuff to be excited about. So I'll keep doing my thing. Hopefully some of my predictions are true, and hopefully some of these things I'm hoping get addressed before the game comes out actually happen. This is when I would normally talk about the viewer questions. We didn't get any this month, which is fine. I know I'm struggling to come up with things to talk about. I'm even struggling to come up with things ideas for other streams and podcasts to talk about. So that's fine. But if you have any ideas, you can go to my Discord, my Twitter. I tend to make a post asking people if they have questions or topics. Always feel free to comment in my Discord. There's a whole room, one to discuss my podcast. If you want to go ask questions, make comments, whatever, I'm happy to hear you out. If you want to critique me, if you want to expand on something I said, if you want me to clarify anything, you can go into my Discord and do that. And then there's another room just for questions and topics for the next one. I always tag everyone in that, and that Discord link should be somewhere below whatever way you're listening to this podcast. That's what I got. So I'm actually amazed I was able to find stuff to talk about for this long. If you want to find the EchoCast, I don't know how you're listening to it now, but it is on Anchor, iTunes, SoundCloud, and I forgot to talk about this at the beginning, Spotify. I did get my Spotify, and the link should be readily available on my Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch as Bondiesel. You can find me on Instagram as Bondiesel_Twitch. And that's what we have. Good talk. I talk a lot, and I appreciate everyone who listens. I really hope that you guys get something out of this. I really enjoy kind of having a half hour or more to just kind of blow, what I'm thinking, kind of a week's worth of stream topics combined into one spot for people who don't like to watch streams or aren't able. And I appreciate you listening. If you were new, I hope you come back. I should post an episode every Saturday or Sunday. I try to do them on the weekends, but I've been every week for now 35 straight weeks. And it'll be a year before we know it. So, that said, I'm Bondiesel. This is the EchoCast. And until next time.